So, we're going to take old dive now into Discord messages from Andrew Hussie. So, Discord messages from Andrew Hussie is, I'll just scroll down and read our little message below. These Discord messages were originally part of a paper zine entitled Discord Messages I Have Received from Andrew Hussie by Gamblington8, Kate Mitchell, sent between July and September 2019. Always meant to be read by fans, they are now available to an international and diverse public for their perusal. Enjoy Andrew Hussie's musings on canonicity, fan communication, Homestuck, and Airbud. So, these were originally a paper zine that was... this project was kind of organized by Kate through the Perfectly Generic podcast, where she made these 10 copies of this paper zine, and then you could enter kind of like a lottery system. They would pull a new name every once in a while for the next person to be like mailed the zine, and it was intended to be mailed from person to person to person. And these are actually from Andrew Hussie, because Kate actually is like friends with Andrew, for context. But yes. So that is the context around these. So yeah, this is not like fan work interpretation of Andrew Hussie. This is his actual words. So there's a lot of a great variety of topics in here, as you can see down the side. We'll just get into the introduction and then dive on in. I just mean that at any point you can make my unbelievably hot shit, print it out, and start circulating underground zines. Go to Kinko's and make horrifically bad photocopies of my screen-capped shitpost statements on Discord. I once made a zine via Kinko's as a teen. I miss those times. I really felt like I was doing something quite subversive. Is Kinko's like a copy place in the States? Because it's definitely not anywhere in Canada. It was this completely insane, like actually incomprehensible thing. It included a few comics, and one was a cyberpunk type comic about Mr. T, which I made. The rest was, I don't even know, like ripped out bits of magazines to make almost ransom note style graphics, resulting in ludicrous articles about like nothing. Then me and my cousins, drove around the city trying to put it in stores, like inside storefront windows and such. And most people just kicked us out. I learned some things about society, I guess. Most businesses do not cotton to this. Like, literally just fucking banks and shit. We would walk in with great aplomb and begin positioning our literature as if mandated by the president to do so. I love the image of that. It didn't really fly, but on the other hand, the dude at Kinko's gave us all the copies for free because he wanted to encourage stuff like this. Good on him. To be honest, we didn't even try much very hard or intelligently, because we all knew it was fucking trash. We just tried whatever until we ran out and went home. Just a valid form of experimentation. California stereotype. Huh. Alright. Okay. Normal. But actually, let's not. Let's be fucking normal. Can we be normal for once? Let's make normal shit. Clapping emojis. There is no bottom to Dirk. Yeah, it's time to fuck me up. See, paradox space getting shattered and sucked into a hole, that's actually just me getting owned. My vice grip on all this shit is broken now. All of it is. Just a perpetual, highly disgraceful Ouroboros self-dunk times infinity. It's all grotesquely psychologically incestuous. That's why there's so much incest in Homestuck, I guess. Sorry, kids. That was all sort of the point, existing in some sort of uncanny incest space. Man, I wish you would stop saying shit like that. It's just really uncomfortable. But to glean something interesting from this, paradox space getting shattered and sucked into a hole is actually just me getting owned, is an interesting kind of bringing himself again as an author figure into that whole meta of Lord English and control over the narrative. That is what I was trying to say. Silence. I came up with a reasonable method of dealing with the tension between all these forces, and I'm fairly satisfied with it to date, which is to say nothing, ever. Indeed, he has been doing that. He has indeed just basically been saying nothing ever. Kind of all there is to say about that. Okay. Epilogues. Yeah, some of them are shorter and simpler. Some of them involve things that could bring about larger discussions. People just need the better part of a decade to get over themselves and finally appreciate good shit. Like, nobody thinks Vriska is controversial anymore. She won. I mean, that's not true. Like, that's patently not true. I think Andrew Hussie is just surrounded by Vriska stans. Because he's a Vriska stan, so obviously he would surround himself with Vriska stans. That's patently not true. And the Vriskourse is still alive and well. I bet the same thing will happen with the epilogues. The epilogue is just a Vriska in story form. Sometimes my ideas are so good I can barely stand it. And yeah, edging the reader is just part of the shit. The epilogue is just a Vriska in story form. Is actually an analogy that, like, kinda checks out, though. Picture this in the voice of 14-year-old Andrew Hussie on the cusp of middle school. Interesting. Yeah, this is... Yeah, he sure is... Oh, that's the one I gotta scroll up a bit. Sure is a dude. Okay. Sometimes my ideas are so good I can barely stand it. Yeah, I know. I mean, like, that fucking checks out to me because he puts statements like that in the commentary in the Viz books, and, like, there's at least one piece of commentary in every single published Homestuck book that says something along the lines of exactly that. Sometimes my ideas are so good I can barely stand it. Picture that as a line in the Goonies. It would fit in there. God. Clowns. Oh boy, clowns. I'm a dark prophet and know much more about our evil society than anyone wants to admit. Yeah, I'm working on it. I mean, not really. But in my imagination, I am. Always thinking about clowns. That's the fucking future. Nah, I'm too old for that. For me... Now it's build a clown school or nothing. Yeah, I might be in my clown prime, actually. Mostly I'm just fucking lazy. Some clowns are sad. I'm a lazy clown, too lazy to paint up and spread the good word. We like to celebrate life, and love, and combat. Also, philosophy. I've basically done a huge amount of work already, and somewhat illogically, conceptually tying juggalos to weed. 420 is weed day, but it's also clown day. So, this, of course, being life, love, combat, and philosophy, epilogues reference. I mean, I don't think it really doesn't really take work to conceptually tie juggalos to weed, because juggalos being stoners is already a long-established stereotype before Andrew Hussie decided to put juggalos in Homestuck. But yeah, it's also a clown day. 420 is the last 420 of the year. Oh, we just missed it. Dang, if I'd known that, I would have announced it at the beginning of this stream. You know, I feel like I probably make too many weed jokes for somebody who's never smoked a weed in my life. Just as an aside. Okay, Homestuck. Fairly Stridurian. Not to make everything about Homestuck, except everything actually is about Homestuck, so whatever. Very true. Radiation. I've been trying to make some recent effort towards the intellectual advancement of these clown ambitions. My latest thinking is that maybe it makes the most sense if the endeavor revolves around some sort of charitable cause, because at some point, one really has to ask, why the fuck are you trying to release more clowns into the world? Is this actually responsible? So you can either take your radioactive clowns and bury them in the earth under miles of concrete, or you can turn their radioactive properties into a force of good and change. Sometimes radiation results in positive mutations. We want a bunch of fuck-ups at a cheap Soviet facility to mishandle clown safety procedures, resulting in a massive, highly comical meltdown. Okay, maybe that goal is too literal. It's in 24, yeah. Yeah, it's, I mean, a small tangent. I feel like I likely will never, just because I have a lot of issues with short-term memory already. Just, sometimes memory in general. I feel like smoking weed would not help me with that. I feel like it would do the opposite of helping me with that. Yeah, although, it is possible that one day I may look into medical marijuana, but we'll see. Anyway, that's like completely fucking off topic. Oh, no, saying you got those weed people are annoying. Oh, yeah, no, it's all good, But, yeah, just as an aside, as the subject has occurred. Yeah, I'm kind of on the fence about this mixed metaphor, and I'm not entirely sure what he's trying to get at with these. Sometimes radiation results in positive mutations. I mean, I guess, theoretically, simply by logic of chance. But, that's not exactly a totally sparkling endorsement. You're saying you didn't try in high school. Yeah. Okay. Rap. I don't actively rap insofar as I don't think I have ever spoken a real rap out loud in my life, but I've written plenty of lyrics. Also, it will be assisted by the knowledge that cancellation isn't even quite real. If left to my own devices, I will just never ever stop thinking of ways to torment and shit on Jake English. He's Tavros 2.0. This is probably going to result in some chaotic discussions. Guys, this is fucked up. We just had to put our universe into hospice care. I'm kind of unsure as to why how that last line relates to literally anything else here. I feel like I'm totally missing context on this one. But yeah, this I really wish that he would just stop talking about Jake and Tavros. Why is he so mean to Tavros? I don't like... it just... I don't... I mean, it's no secret that I'm like a little protective of Tavros, but it mostly comes from the perspective of like, wow, he was so poorly written as a disabled character. And like the way that his disability is handled and talked about by the narrative and by other characters is like, yikes. So my disabled ass is like, hey, yeah, I mean, like, we did just very recently go through, the conversation where he's like, yeah, my legs give me my confidence. My legs give me self-esteem. And Jade did kind of like be like, I don't think that's a good approach. I don't think that's true. That whole conversation. But yeah, anyway, I'm veering a little bit. It's something about, Jake and Tavros are like the two pages, right? And he's just got something fucking out for them. And it just, it's just so fucking unnecessary. God. Yeah, what was it that in a Discord conversation. It's what was this? Someone was like, oh yeah, that whenever he says stuff like that, it makes me never want to think about Homestuck ever again. And I was just like, fucking yeah, man, God, I feel that. Okay, morals. Oh yes, and now a few of these getting to more of like fandom and politics and like politics in general. Except his special horse boy Horace biased exception. True, Horace is another page, but Horace is, yeah, his special horse boy. Maybe this is why communism fucking sucks, actually. It all sounds good, but then they have to do shit, and all they do is write call-out posts about each other. Same as it ever was. I think it's probably just a universal constant that left-wing personalities are just complete and total disaster people, and we need to make peace with that. See, this is why the left needs a massive clown movement to put wind in its sails, so we can lionize literal clowns, as a huge dunk on the right. There's been an idea coalescing in young fandom which has been kind of difficult to deal with while still trying to make fictional content, which seems to be the moral value of children's media should be conflated with the moral value of any given piece of media. When a critical mass of young people start really believing and enforcing that, it gets kind of tough to keep making challenging things, which is kind of unfortunate, because making challenging stuff is the only way to make impactful statements about the important topics which they say they hold dear. I love you for this leftism, Hussie. Yeah, like, I forget what lionize means. Give me 1 second to fucking Google that, which I should have done the first time I read this. Oh, give a lot of public attention and approval to or treat as a celebrity. Got it. Right, lionize literal clowns. Okay, now I get it. Yeah, I guess... Yeah, there's definitely something to this, for sure. Clown celebrity. Yeah, we're gonna get some fucking clown celebs up in here. I mean, I feel like Hussie is already like halfway there. Especially with the fucking Juggalo e-boy photos he just posted to his Instagram like a month ago. Was that a month ago? Oh, no, that was just a few weeks, right? Oh my god, I think that was a month ago. E-boy Hussie was his first step. Oh god, he's laying the groundwork for this mad plan. I mean, low-key he is. But yeah, I feel like it's not necessarily, though, the moral value of children's media being applied to every single piece of media. It's partly perspectives kind of like that, and partly the idea that creating a depiction of something is endorsing it. That is, I think, a bigger roadblock, I guess, in what he's talking about, and like making challenging stuff same brain, lol. Yeah, like, it's, I feel like that's more so or at least on even keel with like what he's talking about with the way that morals in media are kind of being interpreted presently. Poe's law in effect. Oh god, I know what that is, but I used to know what that is. Poe's law is an adage of internet culture saying that without a clear indicator of the author's intent, it is impossible to create a parody of extreme views, so obviously exaggerated that it cannot be mistaken by some readers for a sincere expression of the views being parodied. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't help that headlines these days, like actual news headlines, also look like fucking Onion articles. Yeah, just the general climate of the whole fucking world right now is also really not helping that situation. But yeah, exactly. You're right. Without a clear, I mean, that's kind of what we were talking about before with talking about how that's kind of happened a number of times in Homestuck, like the with the Caucasian joke, or with I think another one that comes to mind for me is there was like one joke in particular in Lonk's Route that was like, oh, how dare I, it's a good thing I don't, what the fuck was it, something that Lynura said, that like some people interpreted it as making fun of people who get pissed at bi headcanons, and some people interpreted it as mocking lesbians, and it just, like, we don't fucking know what the author's intent was, and, like, honestly, it could go either way. But yeah. Yeah, that is kind of an interesting thing to be trying to navigate with media creation in the present moment. Oh, I liked a girl, so I can't like a boy now. That would be problematic. That was it. Yeah. And then it was kind of like, you know, it could, like, the number of ways that could be interpreted, and the fact that it was an anonymous author that we can't completely discern, like your initial, like, reader's initial interpretation of that is just entirely based on their own experience and perspective. And you know what? A lot of, you know, interpretations, both good faith and bad faith, I can see how all of them can be read into the text, and we can't really know what the actual intent was, because, I mean, that with that one in particular, it was an anonymous author. But just, like, generally speaking, yeah. Yeah. So that was kind of an interesting point of discussion. King. Oh shit, yeah, I kind of remember reading that too. It was main line and not flavor text on the side. Yeah, that was in the, like, Lonk's short end, or like the valid ending of his Pest Request route. One of my operating theories is that if you take something by a creator, which carries that authentic canon energy, and then infuse it with the energy and ideas that come from more from the wavelength of fan enthusiasm, then it seems likely that fans will pick up on that wavelength too and enjoy the results. Maybe they can make a zine for conservative Homestucks. I knew it. I knew Homestuck turned everyone gay and or destroyed gender. Also, non-cis spreads are pretty lopsided. I think the straights just have a weak farm system. The farm system is called gender. I'm just a more nuanced politician than that. A gentle philosopher king, if you will. Please clap. Also set in Act 2 again? I don't recall reading that. I know that it's not really possible to read every single line of dialogue in a single playthrough. The reason that I'm not so sure is because I feel like if they put that sentiment in Act 2 a second time, or like similar sounding joke, it would be fucking explosive on Twitter, and the same discourse would be all over the place again, and I haven't seen any of that, so that's the main like only reason why I'm kind of leaning away from that interpretation being in Act 2. Yeah, this is another one that's kind of disjointed at the other side of the conversation happening. Turned everyone gay and or destroyed gender. Let you know some of the times you find in your video, or you confusing memories. You write about Twitter explosion. Yeah, it's all good. It's all good. But yeah, if you do peep it, let me know, because I'd be interested to see, you know, if they did kind of keep that sentiment in Act 2. Pardon me while I choke on my own spit. I'm gonna have some water. Don't die. Thank you. I will not. Okay. Canon. Prefaced, I guess, by some sort of statement like, Andrew's philosophy is that making posts online is for basic bitches, and true visionaries only communicate through an unfathomable pattern of performance art and loosely coordinated spokespeople. That's a decent explanation of how he has communicated with us over the past few years. Yeah, I think it can be interesting to play with official dispatches of info, ways to disseminate messages from a creator, almost as much as playing with the media in question. I'll probably consider more methods like that, such as putting 20 toblerones in a box near a cave. Even though my thing was 2,500 words, it's still relatively brief compared to what could be said in a clarifying way, but I kind of think you just can't say too much at once sometimes, or the message disappears. That's true. But I think there are more points to be made about, like, authoritativity when it comes to how fans perceive some works of fiction as more legitimate than others, and how there are a lot of illusions about that which can be poked at. People who've been writing works for Marvel characters for the last several decades literally have been writing fanfiction. There's literally nothing to distinguish what they are doing from fanfiction, except a big corporation run by people who also had nothing to do with these characters is saying, this is more legitimate than anything you are doing out there. Which is sort of insane that a corporation has a magic wand to tell you what forms of art are more important than others. Everyone is so powerfully brainwashed by capitalism, even these passionate anti-capitalist folks. They talk a good game about how Disney sucks or whatever, but then turn around and start talking about media in this very formalist way that implies they agree with corporations defining legitimacy of what's real or fake. Even What Pumpkin is a corporation. It's just a very small one. The fact that What Pumpkin has the good and real shit, whereas you do not, is a psychological thing, not a reality. Yeah, so that actually, this kind of informal speaking actually I think is more clarifying on his kind of views on this stuff than his message in the Perfectly Generic podcast was. Bruh, holy shit, Hussie. I mean, yeah, basically. But, yeah, I mean, like, everyone is so powerfully brainwashed by capitalism, even these passionate anti-capitalist folks. That tracks up. I mean, like, it does, right? He has a lot of good points, but I feel like he's ignoring the fact that he's the original author. I mean, like, I feel like that's one of those, what am I trying to explain? Because I want to, like, word this properly, or I know it's going to be, like, really confusing and not make sense. I don't know. I don't know if I can explain what I'm trying to think of in a clear way, because I'm not, I am unfortunately not actually that well read in my politics. Like, if Batman's original creators were still around, should we say they don't have final say over their character? I mean, that really depends on if they want that. And what Hussie is saying is, like, it's kind of like when we talk about once you put a piece of media or an idea out into the world, you cannot control the interpretations that come from it, right? And I think like the point that I think he's trying to aim at here is that like we're allowing the interpretations of like the corporate to rule over any other interpretations, no matter how good they might be, just because they're not like quote unquote official interpretations, when in reality all of those other interpretations and ideas are just as valid as the ideas of the original product. Am I explaining this? Does this kind of make sense? If they sell Batman to DC, does the corporation now rightfully control what isn't canon? Well, I mean, in capitalist society, yeah. And that's what he's saying, is that's, you know, how a lot of stories are being that's the lens that they're being processed through. Batman's creator didn't get the final say over his creation. Bill Finger created almost all elements of Batman, but Bob Kane got the sole credit for it. Corporations have always controlled non-independent media since their initial conceptions too. Yeah, and I mean that's what he's saying, is that he doesn't agree with that kind of model of thinking, of looking towards the corporation as like the crown kind of rulers. Which is why there's no choice but to revolutionize the world. Yeah, I know what you mean. Once the idea exists, the audience and of the idea will have ideas of their own interpretation, and that's how human culture stories work. And who's to say any derivative story is less real than the next? Thank you. Yes. Yeah. That's it. That is the distillation of the point. You know, who's to say that any derivative story is less real than the next, or less worthy of discussion and attention, less worthy of consideration, right? Calls into question the line between like a headcanon and a derivative story. Yeah, I mean, I guess if we were to get into kind of the grit of like the specific terminology, yeah, how does that terminology kind of fit together? Which is exactly his point with the epilogues questioning canon. Yeah. Although I do agree with, in reference to specifically to the epilogues, and like generally the whole web of like quote unquote official content, I do agree with, there's a number of people who've been kind of like, if you really want to lean into this whole interpretation of like the canon doesn't matter, official content, you know, whatever, exploring fan ideas, then to invest more in stories that don't fit into the current canon. Because like what they've done is every single piece of like official content connects to every other piece. Like they're saying that they're opening this up to, you know, promoting more fan interpretations and other narratives and that sort of thing, but then all of the like kind of official stuff that they're putting out is all one story web. You know what I mean? I've seen some folks rallying for Paradox Space to come back, as like an example of a way for them to like actually start promoting more of these kind of different fan interpretations and stuff, and I'm like super for that. Paradox Space was fucking sick. Yeah, like it's all Homestuck is connected to the epilogues, which connects into Homestuck Squared, and then Hive Swap connects to Homestuck. Friendsim is connected to, and Friendsim is connected to Hive Swap, and then, you know, Friendsim's connected back to the original Homestuck because they talk about the Sufferer and all that stuff. And then Pester Quest is connected to Homestuck Squared in the epilogues universe, as well as the original Homestuck, and as well as back to Friendsim. And then, I mean, Act 2 obviously is the continuation of that story from Act 1. So it's like they all kind of like web together and shit. For story saying canon doesn't matter. It feels like a weird move to release an official continuation of Homestuck. I mean, yeah, because that's the thing, is that they're saying like, oh, this is fanon. You know, their whole thing about this, it's like a fan continuation on their like FAQ, but it's undeniable that the very fact that it's being billed as official content, that the Andrew Hussie is involved in it, that it's being organized by What Pumpkin, that the Patreon for it is you know, the official Homestuck Patreon, and it's posted a bit by the official accounts where not a lot of fan projects are. Like, it undeniably places it on a level that is different than other fan projects. Paradox Space would actually represent this idea of branching interpretations. Yeah, right? Like, I think that would be really good. What you're thinking of yourself, though, the epilogues questioning canon is less like, does this one team, like, it's simultaneously being labeled as beyond canon and official on its homepage is very confusing. Yeah, so it's like, I appreciate and enjoy these ideas, and I also know that, like, you know, it is important to, you know, not to take those other ideas into account, right? Like we were talking about, with, what's it called? You know, like, who's to say any derivative story is less real than the next, right? But, you know, as much as we can, like, push back on this kind of, like, culture of the corporation dictates the quote-unquote real story, it's still, you know, it is undeniable that, like, with Homestuck Squared being called an official work, it is going to, in a lot of people's eyes, actually take precedence. So if they want to actually actively move towards pushing people to really think about media in this way, they gotta walk the walk more with promoting more Homestuck content that does not exist within the confines of the network of story that they've created through official content. I am so fucking proud of myself for getting that statement out and it making sense. Because it took a hot second to figure out what the fuck I was trying to say. Does this one team stuff all follow the same timeline, which was the paradox space framing question, whereas you want to interpret now is they mean to say what makes Act Omega any more official than Homestuck Squared? Or any more, like, real. Yeah. Yeah, and just like generally, yeah, just like widening the scope of. I had a good minute, and then now I'm just fucking like word vomiting again. Hussie should basically dissolve the rights and let all fans profit from Homestuck derivative stuff. Oh boy, yeah, the copyright stuff is a whole other conversation. I know that's one that's been around for a while. There's some people who are like, he needs to let it go, da, da, da. And I'm like, I don't even know how the fuck copyright works. I'm not even gonna bother pitching into that conversation because I didn't know the first thing about how the fuck any of that shit works. I have read a few like Discord chats about it with people who know what the fuck they're talking about, and I have still ended up being confused about it. Because there's points for and against, and I'm just like, oh, how the fuck does that shit even work? Not Homestuck's copyright, just copyright in general. Maybe this is Hussie's long-term plan to nullify Viz's purchase. I sold you the rights, but no one cares about canon. I can't have it, no one can, or I guess everyone can. Yeah. I know that for a time, I mean, back when Homestuck was still much smaller than it was at present. I think, like 2009 to 20, I think even in like 2013, 2014, when it was still had kind of a boom, they still had this kind of rule in place. That Hussie had asked people to not sell any sort of merchandising for Homestuck because it would cut out of the official kind of profits, which at the time as a small independent creator, I think made sense. But I know that I actually know someone who did conventions and like has like sells like Homestuck fan art and stuff, who directly contacted Viz Media after the property was kind of like acquired by Viz Media, to double check with them that presently Homestuck merch and like fan merch and selling stuff falls under Viz Media's policies for that, which allows it. I mean, that's an oversimplification, but like, I mean, Viz Media, they do like Naruto and like a bunch of other really big things, and their policy for those is that they do allow that sort of thing to be like sold in convention centers by fan artists and stuff like that. I forget where I was actually going with that. I guess it's just a fun fact. Don't know anything. You're just saying you would really support the message to just like let everyone get that money. Yeah, maybe some good fan stuff profits hundreds times more than Hussie's own continuation. Dubiously canon concept perfected. Yeah, I mean, yeah, and I mean, I think just gonna talk myself in circles here. I think at the moment, regardless of where copyright like stands, fan projects are still allowed to profit. Because, like, for example, I'm fairly certain there is a Vast Error, like, Patreon, right? Just, like, as an example of a project that has yeah, there is a Vast Error Patreon. And, like, Vast Error I haven't read Vast Error, but like, passing familiarity, they took that concept of Alternia and kind of twisted its concept into their own like interpretation, right? Posture check? Oh, thank you. Yes, I will sit up a little taller. Like, I know that there's things about Vast Error, like, I know that the planet is not Alternia, it's a different name. And I know that they've kind of twisted some of the societal rules. But, yeah, that's kind of, like, when I think of, like, fan projects having their own, like, being able to make money off of their own interpretations, and possibly even, becoming more popular than the original work, which I don't think Vast Error has reached quite that level, but I know that it's very, very well known within Homestuck fandom. yeah, that's kind of what I thought of when we were talking about that, just as a primary example. So I think people are still like able to do that. I mean, like the Optimistic Duelist has a Patreon as well and makes, videos using the Homestuck framework, like class-specting characters from other pieces of media, or making videos about Homestuck itself, and doing analysis on that, and like is, has the Patreon set up for that as well. So I think people are still, like, in terms of fans being able to profit from their own like fan-y creations, I think that's still fine. I just think I guess like literal redistributions of trying to profit from like selling literally just Homestuck the original comic with no edits would, I don't know, Viz might do something about that, but anyway. Okay. That's good. It means the actions follow the "is our stuff even the best" canon by letting creators earn. Mm-hmm. Yeah, good conversation. I feel like we're good to kind of continue forward from this. But yeah, that was a good discussion. Like fan creators. Yeah. Okay. Speaking of fan ideas, toblerones. Also, I only post online for the specific purpose of granting wishes. I suddenly like fostering the idea that these magical toblerones gave certain intrepid fans some true agency per some Wonka stunt. Toblerones are like these magic golden triangle bars that contain pure hope energy. Yeah, they're pretty good, although really my obsession with them is just a long-running gag more than anything. And now I have decided to imbue them with this magical energy quite suddenly. I get to just do that. Say something is magic, then it's true. No need to apologize. No, that was a very good conversation. That was like a really good discussion of like the ideas that he was putting forward there. Yeah, so here's a look behind the scenes of the Toblerone thing, flying by the seat of his pants. Not new for him. He wrote a whole webcomic that way. Yeah, I feel like there's something else about Toblerones in here that we talk a little more about. One thing I always wanted to do was, like, if I make a good female character or a good gay character, is to make sure I'm making them total train wreck people, just like all the cool cishet men characters get to be. Which I think also includes narratives that focus on that stuff, and read by those people. Don't be afraid to nosedive into the sewer sometimes, otherwise you're just treating all that material with kid gloves too much. But yeah, I'm very thankful for all of the fucking absolute hot mess gay characters in Homestuck. I always felt like whenever I did crazy or sort of bad shit, it carried an implied message of, I know what I'm doing here, I can take a punch, and the message that I can take a punch almost becomes sort of the point of doing it weirdly. But also this is a luxury I have as a solo artist, not to mention being insulated by privilege, but others may find it harder going forward. The problem is, people involved are definitely going to get attacked, almost no matter what. And there just needs to be a willingness to build up some armor, or not even armor. It's more like being at peace with very negative views about yourself. I have thought about this topic over many years, which is something like, why do I do bad shit sometimes when I know it's bad and I know I'll get destroyed for it? And I think the most constructive answer is that it was always partially an exercise in disarming my own fragility, which I think has a lot of value if you actually want to be honest in confronting dark topics with yourself and otherwise. But if you're too scared or anxious, you kind of can't do that. You can never go hard enough in art to create those revelatory experiences for yourself. But for me personally, at least, looking back on everything, I think there was a lot of value in doing all the shit which essentially worked to tear down my ego a bit, and other barriers which prevent you from being fully honest about the stuff you make. Like, there's this idea that you work hard to cultivate your work, and this is going all out to make sure that everyone thinks you're a super duper good person. It's a really tense line to walk, kind of unnatural, and at the end it can kind of all blow up in your face anyway if you've established such a high bar persona. Then even tiny missteps can feel like the fucking end of the world. K-Train mess characters, like all the two characters in the movies. Yeah, so this is... It's kind of a lot. Let me just review this. Yeah, it's... I mean, I think his way of approaching the subject is interesting, and gotta grind to build up your cancellation armor. I mean, like, that's definitely one way to look at this. I mean, like, the kind of thing that is to build up your cancellation armor. Yeah, it's like dang it. I'm having trouble finding the words for this one, too. But yeah, I mean, basically he's talking about an exercise in disarming my own fragility. I mean, I think this is a little bit of it's a unique way to approach this. But I mean, he just kind of have a point about, like, if you establish such a high bar persona, even tiny missteps can feel like the end of the fucking world. But I'm kind of curious as to which, like, as to when he was typing this out, if he was thinking of very specific things that he's done, like if he had any specific kind of instances in mind. But yeah. Spirit. I've been putting so much energy into my clown sona that I've horribly neglected my fursona. I think that would be the obvious thing people would expect. There would be nothing wrong with a horse sona, per se. Something about the energy of actually being a horse feels intimidating to me, though. It's like a fucking lot. I would have to spend time ruminating on what makes me feel free inside. Maybe go on a spiritual journey. Ah, shit. Here we go again. Walking backward toward Toblerone Cave. People now leaving notes of prayer to June Egbert at the holy pilgrimage site. I knew it would start catching on as a place of spiritual journey. This is what I wanted. Yes, I remember people leaving, like, fan art and such of June Egbert at the Toblerone Cave. Gamers. It's like Air Bud. There's no rule that says Jack Nicholson can't play basketball. Vriska shit. Just a Vriska catastrophe in automotive form. Solix comes from a long and proud heritage of gamers. These are all seem very disconnected out of context. I'm really... Where did the Solix as a gamer thing, like, really come from? Because, like, somewhere in there, Solix just got steeped in gamer culture. But I feel like, if he did kind of, like, play a lot of video games, he would fucking abhor gamer culture. Because he's got them Game Grubs. That's true. He does kind of have a lot of Game Grubs sitting around in his room. But yeah. Just, I guess it's like, I feel kind of weird about how heavily that's been leaned into as an important character trait for him within the past, like, couple years. When I don't think that's a really big part of his personality. Like, it's there, but I don't think it's as big as it's generally being made out to be. But, where was I going with this? Y'all, I'm fading fast. I had a real shit sleep last night. I remember now. I remember where I was going. I feel like, you know, it's likely that it's really just because there's been that kind of explosion of, like, gamer culture in general as, like, a wider cultural force, and, like, you know, making fun of, like, gamers and, like, the guys who get all uppity about, like, gamers. Quote from XXX3, I don't think gamer is a character trait as much as a superficial note about someone. Yeah, it's, like, the term gamer and being like, what's up, gamers, and, like, shit like that. It's just, like, it's grown this whole this single word has grown an entire very complicated culture around it as to what does it mean? Who does it actually refer to? What, you know, like, what makes someone a gamer? What does it mean to call yourself that, like, to self-identify versus somebody, like, I don't know, using it as an insult? What kind of implications does that make? It's like, ugh, it's grown into a very complex, the single word has grown into a interesting branch of conversations. Gender. MSPA has always been famous for weird puzzle shit, but the real gamers know. See, there it is again. They're just, you know, he's kind of pulling it into his own vernacular, like, using the term as, like, kind of a jokey word, right? Anyway, getting off my high horse. MSPA has always been famous for weird puzzle shit, but the real gamers know the dark horse contender has always been weird gender shit. Problem sleuth characters are a bit like MSPA reader. Person-like people. Little dress-up dolls who perform accordingly. Caliborn's male performance is 100% informed by just observing humans and their gender culture. Dave's transformation into the Bernicore poly-turbo nerd is really one of the best turns his character could have taken. Gotta hand it to myself for that one. My take on that would be that Jake is actually harder to read because of his totally indiscriminate tastes. When you're about everything, you're about nothing, or at least you're making yourself out to be. In a sense, it's another method of obfuscation he uses. Go run that hot shit by the Englishistas out there, they'll eat it up. What's up, gamers? Homestuck is the one true video game. Assuming that it's responding to bringing up the problem sleuth spiritual quests. But yeah, you know, run that hot shit by the Englishistas. Like, that actually is a pretty interesting, like, good take about, like, Jake and kind of a way of analyzing the way that he behaves, I guess, or how he thinks. Yeah, that's good. That's good shit. But, yeah. Like, that's true. Like, a lot of the stuff on MSPA, very gendery. But yeah, I got not a whole lot extra to add about this. It's pretty, for once, this one is actually, like, relatively straightforward and spot on without, a whole lot I feel like I want to add from my end. End. When Seinfeld dies, that's it. I'm packing it in. Just walking off into the woods. You'll never hear from me again. as his famous co-writer Drill once said, this whole thing smacks of gender. Yeah. And that is everything. That is Discord messages from Andrew Hussie. Whew. So, yeah, I mean, I'd say most of those were, like, pretty on kind of the lighterish side of things, didn't require too much conversation, but we got some real good discussions going around that deep shit. R.I.P. Seinfeld. Ooh. Fucking rip Seinfeld. Yo, you know what Seinfeld just always makes me think of? Because I didn't really grow up watching Seinfeld. My parents didn't really watch Seinfeld. It wasn't really on in my house. I know Jerry Seinfeld from his Netflix show, Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee, because that's, like, my parents were interested in, like, kind of seeing the kind of people that he was speaking with, and that sort of thing in his show. So, you know, we watched it. We watched TV together. He's kind of an asshole. He's kind of like a real self-centered asshole. Maybe it's just a persona that he puts on for doing that show. But it's kind of an ass. Your dad watches that every day. Yeah. He is kind of an ass. Thank you. Yeah, he's just like... I think that's how people describe Seinfeld when it was on. Don't have the heart to tell him. Show about a bunch of assholes doing nothing. Yeah, I mean, you know. That's a valid genre when it's done right. Yeah, I don't know a whole lot about Seinfeld, but I know that it was kind of like a... It made big industry waves in, like, the sitcom kind of genre. I kind of have that impression. But yeah. He's an asshole. Just, like, so much of those interviews, he turns it around to try and, like, get the other person complaining with him, or, like, being insulting, or, like, insulting things alongside him, or, you know, just kind of acting generally, like, expressing very, like, self-centered views. Yeah, that's my exposure to, that's haha, I hate my wife culture. Yes! Complaining, that's what it was. Yeah, like, the image comes to mind. I remember this one did the rounds on Tumblr for a little bit too, because he did an interview with John Mulaney, and so many interviews he brings up that kind of, like, haha, I hate my wife culture, haha, why did I have a family? And it's, like, kind of culture, and it's like, whoa, you know, it's actually, like, not a good thing, right? And, like, he tried to get John Mulaney to, like, join into that kind of, like, the wife, right? Like, wisecracking, and John Mulaney was, like, not fucking having it, and was looking at him, like, trying to keep up a polite appearance, but you could tell that he was kind of like, what the fuck is wrong with this guy? That's exactly the one you were thinking of, yeah. But yeah, he's brought that kind of stuff up in so many interviews, and it's just like, oh man. Oh man. Okay. On that note, that is a wrap on today's stream. Poor wholesome John. Yes. That I lost my train of thought again. No, I got it back. Y'all, I gotta fucking, like, go to bed really soon. Yeah, I was expecting this to be like, oh, I'll have a whole hour to fill at the end of the chapter again, so I'll do this. We're like an hour overtime. It's late here. That could be a wrap. You're found. Thank you. Yeah, I just, but you know what? It's been a good time. It's been some good shit. That is today. So, okay, right. Getting my brain about how the fuck do I close the stream. So, tomorrow we are back to regular old Homestuck reread. We have a real long pestalog between Jade and Carcat. I'm very excited for it. And next Wednesday we're continuing Arcade Spirits. We're starting chapter 6. Chapter 6. I'm fairly certain we're starting chapter 6. This past Wednesday we did the beach date, and it was lovely and cute. And that will be up on YouTube soon. So will the full marathon stream, which, y'all, I just like to formally apologize. I didn't realize over the course of that stream, for some fucking reason, the audio got really imbalanced. And by the end of that 22 hours, my voice on the audio is so much louder than everyone else's, and I hate it because it was supposed to be even. Like, it sounded okay in the early parts, and then the later you get in, all of a sudden it's all balanced weird. Ugh, whatever. So sincerest apologies, because I know that will make it harder to actually listen to if anyone's interested in poking into that. That will be up soon. Just me. Yeah, just me fucking screaming the MSPA reader lines, and then like very quiet. It was Malix was one of the ones that I was kind of listening to for a few minutes, and I was like, oh my god. Oh no, this is awful. Oh my god. What have I done? Mick's beautiful voice is so much quieter than mine. So that's the thing. But it will be up. I have successfully rendered both parts. It took a long fucking time, but I did it. We good. I'm going to be starting to do those uploads overnight. That should be up over the weekend. And then we'll get on to uploading Arcade Spirits, and then the wonderful nonsense that happened today. Oh, I'm glad you are finding humor in it. So that's what's up here. Homestuck reread tomorrow, Arcade Spirits on Wednesday. And the weekend after that, double Homestuck reread. We're back to one Homestuck squared a month, so it's pretty safe to say most weekends are going to be double Homestuck reread from about here on out. So, yes, good night. Indeed, good night. I am going to bed soon. Thank you all so much for hanging out and for having these wonderful conversations with me. I hope that y'all enjoyed this evening as well. And I got my fingers crossed I'll be seeing y'all right back here for some more nonsense tomorrow or Wednesday or next weekend, whenever you can make it. Have a lovely, splendid rest of your day, whatever you may be getting up to. I will see you around, and we'll let Old Secret play us out.